Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sewcial Hour Podcast. I'm your host, Audra.
And I'm your host, Bethany. And today we're talking about all things Sojo. And, we all lose it from time to time, but how do we get it back? And Audra and I have some pretty creative ways to maybe help you find your Sojo again if you're in one of those slumps. So we're going to kind of talk about that today because I think everybody can relate to that.
I think so too. And really, they're pretty simple strategies, but I think sometimes we just need to be reminded that there's a lot of power in just a simple reset. So we're excited to go through those.
I mean, when we were prepping for this and I was putting in my notes, I was literally sitting there thinking, what do I do? What do I need to do in this moment? I'm kind of in one of those Sojo slumps myself. So I think this is going to be helpful for a lot of people. But let's kick things off with our icebreaker that we love to do. This question is, what's one non-sewing thing that inspires your creativity or makes? Audra, what about you?
I was thinking about this, and I think a lot of it stems from entertainment. And I know that's really vague. And when I say entertainment, it could be books, it could be movies, it could be music, it could be TV shows. I was cleaning off my phone last week and there were photos of things I'd taken pictures of during a TV episode that I'm like, oh, that's really a cute idea, or oh, I really like that. And right now, of course, we've talked about I'm reading the Empyrean series, Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, Onyx Storm, and that has my mind going of like, what could this be in a sewn project, whether it's like a quilt or clothing or you name it. I think definitely entertainment is probably my biggest driving force in my creative projects, but it could come from a lot of different entertainment sources.
Well, I mean, that's true, so true for you because you just made a tracksuit themed for your Harry Potter house. I mean, like, as soon as you said that, I was like, that is so on brand for you.
That's true.
I saw you plug in this icebreaker and so for me, I think for sewing, it is solely based on my mood. And maybe the secondary thing would be like the season, the time of year. I definitely absorb that vibe. I would say fall is my favorite season. It's also my birthday season, if we have birthday seasons. But I love fall and all things fall. But I love summer too, and I love spring. Winter, I'm not a huge fan of. But, it just kind of, like my sewing, like creativity kind of comes from my mood and kind of driven by the season because I don't make the same stuff over and over. So I think a lot of my inspiration comes from seeing what other people are making as well. So as I'm like scrolling Instagram or see something pop up in someone's story, I take a lot of screenshots, like a lot of screenshots. And it's always garments that I would love to design one day and probably never will. But that's like you take photos of the TV or whatever you're watching. I'm taking screenshots of like things I see on social media that inspire me in that way. But do I ever really do much with them? No. But that's just, it gets me in that mindset though. And I think that kind of leads into what we're going to talk about today with Sojo. Finding your Sojo, getting it back. If you're, we all go through different phases of life. It can be a weekly slump or like here and there, or it could be a seasonal thing. It could be a time of life if you're, moving or, have young kids or expecting or just changing careers. I mean, like all these kind of life things that happen outside of our sewing can definitely have a huge impact on our Sojo. But just because you've taken a break or feeling a little out of it, but you've got this like gnawing urge to get back to it, listen to that. Totally listen to that. So Audra, do you have something that you feel like helps you kind of pull yourself out of that and maybe even go as far as to say like what are some common things that kind of maybe cause you to get into those slumps? Because we all have it. I think for me it's work and stress. So
yeah, I think I've talked about this a little bit in previous podcasts that to never underestimate the power of 10 minutes, but it's really hard when we get into these stressful moments in life and you have those 5 big stressors, like moving, changing jobs, death, marriage, all those things. Those are big stressors in life. But there's also a lot of other things that cause us stress that can deplete that, whether our schedules are very full or we feel pulled in a variety of directions. I get that, and I've been there. I think some of my key strategies to battle those, one of the first things I do is start small. If I want to find my creative rhythm, I start small, whether it's like a little bitty zipper pouch or just something that it's a quick, easy win that reminds me why I enjoy making, allows me to step out of whatever stress or creative block I'm feeling. I stop, pick out my fabrics, pick out my zipper, take the time, remember why you enjoy creating, because you can make something that's your own. Do a small project. Definitely don't start with the big ones. Don't try to break your sojo by making a gown or a big complicated bag. Start small. And then even if those small things, even if you don't need it, so you don't say, I don't need another organizational pouch. It's like the last thing I need. Well, make it and maybe gift it to somebody and see the joy in their face and kind of trigger that like, oh, that's why I enjoy making, because it brings me joy and it can also potentially bring others joy. But also those small projects allow us to remember the relaxation part of it, because there are parts of sewing that can be stressful for us, whether we're learning a new technique, trying a new project. Sometimes those things don't work out the way we planned, and they actually cause us some stress too. So you want to remember that it can be a relaxing venture, that it doesn't have to be another stress point for you. Finding that sojo is remembering that it is a pressure release. It is a place for you to go to relax and enjoy and learn. And really, it's that relaxation part of it. I know we're learning, I know we're trying new things, but it can be a relaxing venture. We are not building the next space shuttle. We are not preparing for the next Mars mission. This is supposed to be a fun, safe, educational space. Yeah. And remembering that is one of the things that really helps us bring that sojo back. And it won't happen overnight. You might need to make a couple little zipper pouches or start with projects that you're like, I was making this project 10 years ago. I'm beyond this. You're not beyond it. You just need to reset. You need a creative reset to remember that not all projects have to level up. We can take a step back and just remember that we like making and we like creating and we like seeing this fat quarter turn into something else. And just take that pressure off. We are our own worst critics.
Oh yeah.
So it may not turn out the way you had hoped, and then that brings your sojo down or it causes another stress point. Just take the pressure off. Enjoy what you're doing. We're here to have fun. We are not here to create a stress point. We're here to open up a pressure, like open up that valve to release the pressure. That's why we're here. So my biggest thing, and that's my long answer, is start small, because that's how we build our fire. That's how you build a fire. You build a fire with kindling and a little paper and a little spark, and you see it grow. And that's what we're trying to do with our creativity. We're building that little kindling. We're building that little triangle of wood and paper to get that fire going again. That's what we're doing with those small projects. So consider it the kindling to your creative fire.
It's true. I mean, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And it's okay if there's a couple of miles where you need to slow down and walk a little. And it's fine. I love that you mentioned the 10-minute thing, because we have talked about that before. And some people are like, well, what can I possibly accomplish in 10 minutes? You don't have to finish anything in 10 minutes. And so one of my notes was get some scrap fabric, maybe find that thread that you've never used, because it's just kind of maybe a weird color or variegated that you just have never really reached for. Grab that funky thread, grab some crazy fabric, and I want you to sit there, whether you have a computerized machine or a mechanical machine, I want you to sit there and stitch out a lot of stitches. This is also a great way, if you haven't really played with all the stitches on your machine, to try them out and play with them. Just start stitching. Pick a different stitch, try different ones, maybe even swap out a foot and try a different foot you haven't used. It's not to learn something new. It's just to re-engage yourself in the motions of sewing. And maybe you might find a stitch on your machine you didn't know about. And you're like, well, that's a fun stitch. I'm going to incorporate that into my next project. And that project should be this. And then see how it snowballs. And we want to just trigger that creativity and get in a rhythm. You'll find that even if you just did that for 10 minutes, the power that the fun that you can have, you'll find that you're focusing so much on which stitch you want to do next that whatever was stressing you out you're not even thinking about anymore. It's just a minor redirection for just a few minutes to remind you of something that can be, to Audra's point, a stress reliever. So to me, I think it's just getting back on the bike. You don't need to have a plan of what the next project is. You don't need to have something cut out. You don't, and I'm going to say this to anyone who likes to put content out there of what they're making. You don't have to film everything you're making either. I think myself included here, a lot of us feel this pressure that every time we go to sew, we have to turn on the camera and record it so we can share it and teach. I think we just have to give ourselves some grace, and even for people like myself and Audra who create and share a lot of that online and teach you guys how to sew, that we don't have to teach everything we make. Sometimes we just need to make something for ourselves for fun. Just want to remind you all that it's okay to not share everything on social media that you make. And it's okay to not film all the steps. But those are kind of my two biggest things, is just sit and stitch, play with your machine, maybe try a new foot. And this isn't just for a sewing machine. There's a lot of different stitches you can do on a serger as well. So if you're trying to familiarize yourself with your serger, maybe just sit and stitch and have your little book out with your different stitches that your machine can do in those settings, and just play with it. I think another thing, and I kind of mentioned this in our icebreaker, is setting the mood. I turn the lights off. I just have the ambiance of my projector glowing. I'll light a candle. I'll turn on some fun music that gets me kind of dancing around my cutting island. And you know, I'm just kind of in the vibe. I'm in my own space. I'm enjoying it. Maybe I'm singing out loud. I don't know. It's just, I try to make it really fun for me. Make it feel cozy and inviting in a space that you want to be in. And I think the second part of that is it's really hard to be creative in a messy space. It's hard. It's hard to want to start the next project when the table is covered with the last 3 projects. I have found from my own personal experience that I will not start a project because my space is not conducive to creativity, because it is a mess and it's overwhelming. So take that time. Instead of 10 minutes of stitching, maybe you take 10 minutes to just tidy up your space. So when you do have time to sit down and sew, you're ready to. Your space is ready to welcome you in and start creating that spark to burn that fire for creativity. And I think my last little tip here, and this is, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Audra, but it's body doubling. Body doubling. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, maybe this is something that relates to people like myself who have pretty severe ADHD. But body doubling, and I'm just going to kind of read this off because I wanted to make sure I said it correctly. I'm not the best at explaining it, but body doubling means that you're doing a task or a project while in the presence of one or more people. In turn, that person serves as an anchor to help encourage focus, accountability, and productivity. Working side by side with another person can improve focus, build accountability, and provide motivation to get that task done, or at least get it started. I would say that this 100% works for me. I wish I could do it more often. I think I do it a lot with, like, my sewing club meets once a month. And there's kind of a running joke that every time I go to sewing club, I finish a project in those few hours because I'm around other people that are sewing, and it keeps me focused on sewing. And so I do almost every single time finish a project. Not every time because I'm starting something new, but A lot of times I finish a project at Sewing Club. But if I don't have someone that I can do that with, I've FaceTimed somebody before. I FaceTimed with my friend Kelly recently, and she was working on something at her house, and she called me about a question, and we ended up just like FaceTiming for like an hour, and because I was working on something, and we were just chatting and working in our own spaces, and it was so lovely. And I truly believe that like surrounding yourself by other people in some form or fashion can really help push you through whatever that task you're trying to do, or just reconnect with the joy of sewing. So I really encourage, if you've never done that, I know it's a weird term, body doubling, but it's like having that presence to keep you motivated. And otherwise I'll find myself sitting down for a second, and this next thing I know, I've spent half an hour doom scrolling and I've accomplished nothing. So I wouldn't do that with someone next to me or on the FaceTime with me or whatever. So I just feel like that is another one that if that relates to you, find that accountability person that you can reach out to and say, hey, like maybe on Saturday mornings we connect and FaceTime and sew together. Even if you don't really talk a whole lot and you're just hearing each other's sewing machines going, you can see that friend is right there doing what you're doing. And it's just, you're sharing that experience with someone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's really an accountability partner.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And you have someone who like-minded, like passions, you can bounce ideas off of. I know I was FaceTiming with you earlier this week asking you something about my machine, and thankfully it wasn't me. It wasn't
no.
But it's having that person that you can lean on that, hey, how's your project going? Hey, how's this going? And even in real time, you can really just keep that train going down the track. I wanted to circle back quick about the space being clear. I don't do clutter. The way I see it is like clutter out clutters my mind. So I cannot agree with you enough on having a clear workspace. I have one project out at a time. If I have multiple projects out, at most it's like something's being edge coded while I'm sewing something else, because it's not two sewing projects. It really keeps me like honed in and focused. And having that clear space allows for that palette of creativity to be open. You know, if you've got a cluttered palette, it's going to be really hard to find that creative path forward. Are we ready for Spool School?
I think so. I think we kind of tackled Sojo. I'm feeling inspired. Spool School is what? A quick sewing tip, hack, or lesson that we can share with our listeners. So what is your tip of the day?
My tip of the day is to keep a little stockpile of scrap fabrics of whatever project you're working on, and always test your stitches.
Yeah.
And I've got a little pile because I'm working on a project right now. So when I cut out my pattern, if you're watching, you'll see me holding it up. When I cut out a pattern, you know, you always have like those little weird chunks that are a few inches by a few inches, sometimes bigger. And you might throw them in your scrap bin for a quilt project, or you might be wondering if they're worth throwing away. I keep a lot of those because that's how I test my stitches. Because whether it's on the serger or on my sewing machine, having that extra 10 seconds of just making sure that your thread looks the way you want it to, it's stitching the way you want it to, especially if it's a new fabric that you haven't really worked with before, which is the case with this project. But even if it's something familiar, it never hurts to just make sure your needle's the way you want it, the stitch is the way you want it, the color's the way you want it. So I have this little pile of fabrics, and you can see, like, if you're looking, I was testing my buttonholes, making sure that it was looking the way I want it, because in this project I'm working on, the buttonholes are going to be very prominent. So I really want to make sure I don't mess it up. And so I keep these little pieces of fabric nearby just to make sure everything looks the way I want it to. And it just saves so much stress, because if I can take 10 seconds testing a stitch and it saves me a date with Jack, I'm a much happy camper.
Love that tip. And I would say my tip kind of works off of that, of practicing stitches. One thing that I've noticed a lot when I teach classes is people starting right at the edge of the fabric. They put the fabric right under the foot, right before the needle. And they start right at the edge. I don't care if it's quilting, fabric, knit fabric, vinyl fabric, it doesn't matter. I always put more fabric under my foot, and I always start my stitches a little in, maybe even a 1/4 inch in or more. And then I will do like maybe 2 to 3 stitches forward before I go backwards. And then I'll go backwards to the edge, but then I'll start going back forward. And what this prevents is nesting, bunching, gathering at the end, especially with quilting cotton. It'll want to gather. It'll prevent like a skip stitch, like losing your thread in your needle, those kind of things. It helps secure the stitches so that your fabric can feed underneath it, kind of get going. And so when you start right at the edge, you don't have as much fabric under the foot and on top of the feed dogs that help push that fabric through. And so there's not a lot for your machine to grip onto, which is why sometimes you'll get that bunching, nesting, or, kind of looks a little messy. And if you want to avoid that, no matter what kind of fabric you're using, just start in a little bit. Start in a little bit, go forward a few stitches, go back to the edge, and then go back forward. You'll find that you're going to have more consistent seams and starting and ending points that way. So that would be my tip. I feel like it sounds simple, but I couldn't tell you how many times I see people struggle with that. Let me know in the comments, either on YouTube or over in our Social Sewis Facebook group. If you find that either one of our tips is helpful to you, try it for yourself. Now, you'll love to see it. Let's wrap up with a positive. I feel like this whole episode's been very positive, though. I mean, we want you guys to be creative. And if you have been in a slump, I'm going to share this real quick. If you've been in a slump and anything that we shared from this episode has helped you reignite your Sewjo, or maybe you have a tip of what helps you that you want to share with our listeners, please go over to our Facebook group, The Sewcial Sewist, request to join, and then share that with us. We post each episode in there for you guys to comment on and share your thoughts on the episode and any feedback or tips that you want to share with our listeners. We love to see that. So what is your love to see it? And then I'll share mine as well.
My you love to see it is acknowledging Memorial Day, which happens around the time this episode is airing. We have to always remember that our freedom is not free, and thank the soldiers, both past, present, and past, and who have passed, that have given their lives for our country or given up time with their families for our country. I am very beneficial that I have veterans on both sides of my family who have dedicated service to our country. And I was very blessed to be a distinguished visitor with the United States Navy. And I was able to fly out onto the USS John C. Stennis aircraft carrier and see our servicemen and women in action, which is incredibly humbling and a wonderful in real time appreciation of what our servicemen and women do for our country. And I think just my love to see it is the reminder, which we shouldn't need the reminder, but we have the reminder that there are many men and women dedicating their lives to our freedom and appreciating all that they do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I also come from a family surrounded, involved in the military. My mom's dad was in the Navy. My dad's dad was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. I have cousins and their families that have been in the Air Force and Army. My fiance's in the Army. We are a military family through and through. And there's a lot of sacrifices that not only the military personnel make, but their families as well. And so we just thank every single one of them and their families for their sacrifice to serve and protect our country and our freedom. So thank you for that. You'll love to see it. Maybe I shouldn't have followed that one, but you'll love to see it is a little more selfish in the sense of we had professional photos taken together to brand and tell the story of who we are in our podcast that we've started together. And Laura, your neighbor, was so kind to take those photos when we were together in Wisconsin not too long ago. And we have since received those finished photos. And let me just say, and I'm giving Laura a huge shout out because her contract with us was, I'll give you 30 finished photos. And then she emails us and she said, there's no way I could have just picked 30. Here's 195. So we got a lot of beautiful photos. Truthfully, I don't know how I could even pick a favorite, let alone 30 favorites. We've got to figure out how we're going to roll these out to you guys. And you may have already seen a few of them by now, but I have to say, I really love to see it. And I think what I love so much about them, because I don't usually love photos that I'm in, but she captured our personalities. I think she captured our friendship beautifully. And I think she couldn't have been more perfect for the vision of what the story we're trying to portray here in our podcast and with our friendship and the things we want to do. We'll definitely be utilizing Laura again in the future for other podcast projects that we come up with.
We'll tag her in the copy for the episode. I know she's local to the Madison, Wisconsin area, but if you're nearby and you're interested, then you know she is available and she is incredibly talented, and I'm lucky to have her nearby.
Now, coming up next week, our next episode is all about sewing retreats. So we kind of talked about finding your sojo. I think sewing retreats is a great segue to the next topic because they kind of relate. I think retreats can be a great place to find your sojo and find those accountability friends to sew with in person or virtually. So we're going to talk about all things sewing retreats next week. And I'm so excited because you guys know I love a sewing retreat.
It's going to be a fun episode because like I said, my first one's coming up.
And I just hosted my first one. And so I'm excited to share all the details about it with you guys and how to sign up for my next one. I'm so excited. Teaser. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and don't forget to join the Sewcial Sewers Facebook group. There's some fun chats over there. I'm learning so much from you all, and I appreciate you engaging with us even after the episode is over. And we'll see you next week. Happy sewing.
Happy sewing.